Welcome to today's webinar on how to make your message stick. In other words, how to make your message more memorable, more effective, more influential, to have more impact. Of course, the reverse of that is we speak, we present, we run a training session and we have no impact. In other words, a week later, people do not recall what the message was. And of course, we don't want that to happen. Peter Dew's my name. I'm a public speaking trainer and coach, and I specialise in helping leaders, teams, organisation like yours be more effective, more confident, more effective, more influential in your public speaking and your presentation skills, so you can have the impact that you want. Just share my screen. So how to make your message stick. How to participate. I know most of you have been on webinars with me before. Ask questions as we go. Feel free to put in your own comments, your own remarks. Do take notes. You will have noticed I do record these webinars. So if there is anything that I've said that may be a little bit complex and you'd like to review, just let us know and we can make the recording available to you. And I think most importantly, think and apply the content to your own personal circumstances moving forward with a presentation or a training that you have got coming up. Is there anything you're going to do to make it more memorable, to make your message stick? Because today's not about me just sharing my knowledge. Today's about you taking one, maybe two ideas that you can use in your own public speaking style. So make your message stick. It's really important that we're clear and that it's memorable and it's influential. The reverse of unclear messages are what we call scattergun approach. In other words, we do a lot of information out there and we kind of hope that something sticks. It's also called spray and pray. We just give a verbal spray and we pray that something sticks, and verbal diarrhea or a verbal dump. So it's about making your message memorable. And whenever I'm coaching people to craft a presentation, I always ask people to think, what do you want people to feel, to know, and to do after, as a result of your presentation? Think, so what emotional response do you want them to have in? Know. Sorry, think, what do you want them to think? So this is knowledge, new knowledge. Feel, what emotion? And what do you want them to do? This is the action. Because if you don't know what you want them to do or to think or to feel after you've spoken, then anything you say will serve the purpose. And that's not the purpose of public speaking. So make sure your message is clear and memorable. I love this book, Chip and Dan Heath, two brothers. This is an older version than the one you've seen in the PowerPoint slide. And it's kind of research dissertation into why do some messages stick and why do other messages fade away, disappear into obscurity? Why do they die? And they've worked out six different, what I'm going to call hooks, six different methodologies. There are others, of which storytelling is one of them. 6 methodologies to make your message more memorable and to help it stick. Chip and Dan Heath, Made to Stick. So I'm going to run through those in the remaining 25 minutes that I have with you. So the first one is what's in it for me. And this is just marketing 101. So most audiences will have a problem, a pain, an issue that they're worrying about. How does your message solve that problem? take away that pain. Other audiences will have aspirations, goals, desires that they're trying to achieve. How does your message help them achieve those targets? You may or may not know that alleviating pain is a stronger motivator than creating pleasure. So one of the things I do is I ask people when they're preparing a presentation, get into your audience's mindset, get into your mindset, get into your audience's footsteps. What is it that's their issue that you have the answer for? And you may be speaking around financial planning. And if you're specializing in females, the gender gap between how much superannuation women have compared to men. If you're talking about financial planning for people moving towards retirement, 55 to 65, and realizing they don't have enough money to retire, and what can they do in those last 10 years? If you're talking about mental health, mental well-being, if you're talking about health and safety, what is the issue that you have the message for? And what happens is we just convert our message from, rather than push marketing, in other words, me telling you what to do, pushing it down your throat, to what is termed pull marketing, where you say to me, wow, Peter, thank you for that. I wish I'd known that 5 years ago. And what happens is you don't have to sell anything because people buy it from you. A classic example of this is within the mining sector. And if you were working in the mining sector, each year you have to do that health and safety induction, that reorientation, that recertification, so you're across all the health, safety policies and procedures. And by all accounts, it is a very boring, mundane, uninteresting workshop. So how are you going to make it more memorable? And one of the ways is to start off with some what's in it for you. So what's in it for me is not me, the speaker, it's what's in it for me from the audience perspective. And the trainer starts like this. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this health and safety training course. I know a lot of you have got other things you'd rather be doing. But before I go on, I'd just like to let you know my sole purpose for running this workshop, the sole reason for you being in this room today, is to make sure that you go home safe and sound to your family, to your friends, to your loved ones, to those people who depend upon you. Now, I need to talk about policies, procedures, hard hats, steel cap boots, and a lot of other mundane, boring material. But the sole reason is to make sure you go home safe and sound. What's in it for you? You get to go home safe and sound. So rather than just saying, all right, you've got to do this health and safety, here's the information, and pushing it down the attendees, the person lets them know this is what's in it for you. And we know of accidents and deaths in the mine sector all the time, and in construction sites all the time. Another example, when I started my business, I've been in business for 13 years, I do my business activity statement each quarter. I bought a software called MyOp, Manage Your Own Business or Mind Your Own Business. And I used to spend 2 days every quarter locked away, manually entering my BAS statement. So this is my receipts, my bank card statements, my check butts, all the invoices I've sent, reconciling it, and finally, some in a shoebox, finally sending in my BAS statement. It was hard work, it was slow, and it almost caused me to quit my business because it was too onerous. Some people say, yes, you should have outsourced, maybe. And then one day I went to a little seminar, a 1-hour seminar, and someone said to me, Peter, I can take your BAS statement from the 2 days you do at the moment to 2 hours. I've got this beautiful software system called Xero, Xero, that'll take your BAS lodgement from 2 days to 2 hours. Does he have to sell that to me? No. My pain was so great around doing my BAS statement, doing my bookkeeping, using a manual, hard, labour-intensive system, that this new system made my job so much easier, saved me time, saved me money, that I brought that system there and then. And because the message was taking away a pain, he didn't have to try and sell me Xero. I just said, oh, tell me more about it. When can I sign up? Because the problem that I had, he had the solution. So that's hook number one. Get in your audience's mindset, get in their footsteps. What's their issue in the area that you're talking about? And how does your message take away a problem or help them achieve their key performance indicators, their goals, their aspirations? The next hook they found was when there's one big idea. That is that one big idea that permeates all the way through the presentation. And I mentioned scattergun approach. That's where there's multiple ideas and people can interpret your core message to suit themselves, which is not what you want. In one of the workshops I run, I get people to craft a message and then they present it after lunch, and I get everyone else in the room, so 8, 9, 12 people, to write down on a piece of paper what the one big message was. And of course, when I read it out, as a speaker, you would want everyone to say basically the same thing. But what happens is I get 3 or 4 different ideas, and you can see the person who's just given this big message, you can see their face change as they realize we have no idea what they just said. So what's the one big idea that's going to permeate all the way through? If I said to you, Nike shoes, Nike, what's Nike's one big idea? And 90% of the time, people reply, just do it. That's what Nike's brand, that's what Nike's messaging is about, just do it. Yes, they sell sporting equipment, but it's about, just do it. Barack Obama on his election night, first election 14, 15 years ago now, spoke and said one thing in 45 minutes to 200 million Americans that tuned in on his election night. And that one thing that he said was, yes, we can. And he spoke about the global financial crisis. He spoke about the American health system. He spoke about people losing their houses because of the mortgage bubble bursting. But after each problem that he mentioned, he said, but this is the United States of America, and yes, we can come through this. Yes, we can solve this problem. Yes, we can do better in the area of our health. So that one big idea that permeates all the way through. What's your one big idea? And we know of the power of repetition within messaging. Just be careful that you don't be too cheesy, too repetitive, and the one big idea that you say too many times causes people to glaze over. There was an election campaign where the slogan was Australia moving forward. 2 weeks into the campaign, they had to cease that slogan and come up with some real terms, because polling showed that the Australian people were rejecting that message due to the overuse and, I guess, the cheesy nature of what it was. Second hook, what's your one big idea? When I do public speaking workshops, my one big idea is that public speaking is a skill that anyone can learn. So if you don't have the gift of the gab, if you're not a natural speaker, if you get nervous, so do many other people. The good news is public speaking is a skill and anyone can learn to be an effective public speaker. What is your one big idea? The third hook they found was a call to action. So ask people to do something. If you only do one thing today, ... Can I ask all of you to write to your member of parliament and ... What's the call to action? Many people I hear speak, and as a professional speaker, I attend conferences and I watch and I listen and I learn. But one of the common mistakes with non-professional speakers is they finish with a soft landing, something like, "Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. You've been a really nice crowd. I've enjoyed my time with you. Thank you. Thank you. Have a great day." As opposed to, if you only do one thing today, which of these things is going to help you grow your superannuation? If it's around mental health, next time you have a friend or a colleague who you notice may be struggling, what are you going to say? What are you going to do just to help lift them up a little bit? What is your call to action that you can use to bring people back to your core message? Ask them to do something. Another hook that Chip and Dan Heath found was the power of the unexpected message. Now, this can be something that's a surprise, something that you wouldn't expect, and it sticks with you. One of the things that I remember is that every 5 days, a female in Australia loses their life to a male partner, to someone that used to love them through family and domestic violence. That's roughly 70, 75 women a year lose their lives to a partner who used to love them. And I find that amazing, and I will never forget that. And I know it's changing. A few years back, it used to be one person per week. And I know if you put men in there, there is more numbers around family and domestic violence, but that is the number of women that lose their life. I did some work with a charity that looks after the health of our oceans, called Flourishing Oceans. And the number one user of single-use plastic containers in the world, so think your disposable water bottles that we buy, think your Chinese takeaway container, the number one user in the world of disposable single-use plastic containers is Australia. America is number 2, UK is number 3. And most Australians think that we're relatively green, we're relatively environmentally friendly, sustainable fishing and all that. But when it comes per head of population, we are the greatest user of single-use plastic containers. And I'll just take a sip of water out of my aluminium reusable water container. Those messages will never go away. I have other messages that are actually quite shocking and unexpected around teenage sexuality, around drug use, around mental ill health. And what happens if you want to get your message across and people remember, the power of surprise is an amazing tool to use. According to Chip and Dan Heath, they've done some research, and this is one of the things that will help your message be memorable. Make your message concrete. This is good for data and statistics, and it helps make the complicated or the sophisticated or the obscure, makes it more memorable. I did some work with the Heart Foundation, and they have some great examples of these. And the human heart is an amazing organ. The human body is an amazing thing. So the human heart in an average lifetime pumps 350 million litres of blood. So that's a statistic, 350 million litres of blood. If I want you to remember that, I need to make that a little bit more concrete. By concrete, something you can get your hands on. 350 million litres of blood in a human lifetime, that's a big number. And in fact, some people won't even remember that. So to help you remember this important statistic, I want you to go home tonight when you've finished work and turn your kitchen tap on. This is in Western Australia, but it could be anywhere else in the world. Turn on your kitchen tap and leave that running for 45 years. That's 350 million litres of blood. If I'm working with a different audience and I want them to remember that statistic, and I now move to maybe Chevron, oil and gas, 350 million litres of blood will more than fill 3 of the world's biggest super tankers full of oil. The biggest super tankers that travel around the world with oil to go to the different refineries from the Middle East and also, of course, from Barrow Island. The biggest super tankers, your little heart in an average lifetime will fill 3 of them. Which one are you going to remember? Which one resonates with you? Are you just the pure numbers person? Some people are. Are you going to turn on your tap for 45 years? By the way, the Water Corporation would advise me not to use that analogy, that metaphor. So don't do it, please. Don't do it. Or are you 3 super tankers full of oil? They have other statistics. If we are a little bit morbid, a little bit macabre, so forgive me, if we strip out all our veins, arteries, we can go around the earth 4 times, something like 63,241 miles of blood vessels. I can't even remember the number. Enough to stretch around the world 4 times. That's a lot of length, according to the Heart Foundation in Australia. If you've got a message, it's a little bit obscure, what are you going to do to make it more memorable, more concrete? And the last hook is credibility. One of the things in getting our messages across and making it memorable is your own credibility. What gives me the right to think I can help you with your public speaking? What gives you the right to think that you can help me with my superannuation, my retirement planning as I transition to retirement? So credibility is really important. Without credibility, people will not buy your message. They'll reject it. We may have heard the story of a young West Australian medical scientist in the early 80s, discovered a bacteria called Helicobacter pylori and worked out it caused peptic ulcers, ulcers of the stomach. And no one believed him. He travelled the world knocking on doors, asking for research funding, for an opportunity to develop his diagnostic test and the treatment for peptic ulcers. Now, peptic ulcers used to kill a lot of people around the world and cause a lot of pain and discomfort. And this young scientist worked out what caused it, Helicobacter pylori, a bacteria, and knew how to cure it, but nobody believed him. He was rejected. They asked, does he come from King's College in London? Nope. Does he come from Harvard Medical School? No. University of Sydney School of Medicine? Nope. Comes from Fremantle. Nobody knows him. He's off with the fairies. He's a crazy young scientist, has no idea. Everybody knows peptic ulcers comes from stress, too much alcohol, poor diet. So in frustration and rejection for 8 years of putting his message across, 8 years of rejection, he went back to his laboratory. Overnight, he incubated and grew up 1 billion Helicobacter pylori. Within a flask, it would have been a glass flask. In the morning, he enumerated them, he counted them, then he drank the entire contents. 3 days later, he developed severe peptic ulcers, got his colleague to do the endoscopy that took the biopsy and the photographs and that proved and showed the Helicobacter pylori and the ulceration, treated himself with the antibiotic. Another 4 days later, peptic ulcers were resolved, scar tissue, further endoscopy, biopsies and photos, and he went to the world and said, hey, I know what causes peptic ulcers. And of course, I'm talking about Professor Barry Marshall, still working in Fremantle Hospital, still working at UWA, the Nobel Prize winner for medicine. He was right. Nobody believed him. His message did not stick because he did not have credibility. Now, where does your credibility come from? Please don't be too worried about this. Credibility is not one thing. Credibility is a range of different things that layer your permission. So where do I get credibility for people to book me to take them on a public speaking journey, whether it's BHP, whether it's Rio, whether it's Chevron, whether it's a group of people in Perth? And my credibility is my story. You may or may not know that I started badly as a young man into my adulthood and was an elective mute, so I didn't speak. So I've learned to overcome my fear and I started to do public speaking. Follow me on LinkedIn. You'll see the articles I write. I write an article every month, a blog post. This is a webinar that I also do and provide to my customers, my clients. It's a way of adding value. My latest book, that's a difficult question, The Art of Speaking Off the Cuff, about to be published, adds to my credibility. Another workshop I run is Thinking and Speaking Off the Cuff, and this book will be the book that underpins, the textbook that underpins that workshop. So it's not just one thing. I've got 6 or 7 Google reviews. I've got 10 or 15 LinkedIn reviews, all 5-star reviews for people that have done my workshops. Where does your credibility come from? So as you're crafting a message, which hooks are you going to put in? Now, please understand, I'm not asking you to try and weave in all 6. You only need 1 hook, possibly 2. What's in it for me? 1 big idea, call to action, a bit of a surprise, something that's unexpected, data, complex information, make it concrete, a model, a metaphor, 3 super tankers full of oil that helps people remember it. And where does your credibility come from? Next webinars, for those of you who like to access my training, 7 ways to grab attention when opening your presentation. So this is the starting strong. And 6 ways to create great content that influences your audiences. I spoke about my blogs on LinkedIn and my newsletters. How do I create content? How do I keep the creativity going? So just some hints about creating content. And it can be it's for public speaking. It doesn't have to be for the written word. How do you create great content that influences your audiences? A couple of workshops, one in Port Hedland next week, and Thinking and Speaking Off the Cuff, which I just mentioned. And my book will be available at that workshop in Perth on the 14th of February. Please, any other questions you may have, any comments, happy to be emailed, peter@peterdew.com. Give me a phone call if you have anything particular issues. So one of the things to make a message more sticky is, of course, a call to action. So what are you going to do the next time you do a presentation? Which of these hooks are going to elevate the quality of your message, elevate the chance of your message sticking and being memorable. I'm Peter Dew, public speaking trainer and coach. Go out there and change your world one conversation at a time.